Sew in applique with Pride and Joy Quilting. For sew in applique, you're going to need lightweight interfacing, preferably ultra lightweight. It comes in fusible and non-fusible. Fusible simply means it has little glue dots on one side. With the glue dots facing down, you're going to want to subcut your interfacing, having at least 1/4 of an inch all around your template. If you're using fusible, you're going to want to have the glue dots facing down. One side will be smooth and the other one will have the little glue dots making it bumpy. At this point, you want to place your interfacing on top of your template. You can use a light box underneath if needed. Taking a pencil or a writing instrument, you're going to want to trace along the edge of the template, which is essentially the sew line where we will be sewing. This will be the outer perimeter of the applique shape that will then be adhered to whatever background fabric you're wanting to place it on. So you want to make sure that this line that you're tracing is very visible, because we're then going to go ahead and sew along this line we're tracing. Once you have traced the shape, you're going to want to take your scissors and cut along the template. Give yourself about 1/2 inch all the way around the surface. Once you've really sewn it in, then you can really go in and trim it really nicely. Grabbing your fabric, you're going to want to make sure that the right side of the fabric is facing up, with the fusible part of the interfacing facing down if you're using fusible interfacing. Now you take it to your sewing machine and you're going to sew with a 2.0 stitch length along the line you have traced. Again, making sure that if you're using fusible interfacing, that the fusible interfacing dots are facing down against the right side of the fabric. Here you're going to want to go slowly, because your shape will be determined by whatever stitch shape you have sewn through the interfacing onto your fabric. So if there is a lot of detail in your applique shape, you really want to take your time so that the stitch reflects the shape you're wanting your applique to take on. Once you have stitched around the entire perimeter of your applique shape, now you do want to take some fabric scissors and carefully cut 1/4 of an inch to the right away from your seam. Now you're going to want to separate the interfacing from the fabric. The easiest way to do that is to pinch both sides and pull them apart so that you're able to hold on to the interfacing isolated from the fabric. Taking some scissors, you're going to want to create a slit on the interfacing, but only on the interfacing. You want to make sure that the slit that you cut is large enough to turn the shape inside out through that slit that you have cut in the interfacing. Slowly now you're going to turn our shape inside out through the slit we have cut. This takes a little bit of finesse, making sure you are tenderly pulling the fabric through. If you need to trim off some edges or create some clips in between curves, this is the time to do that in between the seam allowance. So gently and gingerly, you're going to turn the seam inside out, and with your finger, you're going to press along the seam until the entirety of the shape has been turned inside out. This will create an applique shape in which the front facing part of the fabric is facing out in one side and the front side of the lightweight interfacing is facing the other. If you are using fusible interfacing, that means that one side will have the fabric facing out and the other will have the glue dots facing out on the side of the interfacing. You can take any sharp object. I like to take knitting needles and lightly press the seam open as much as you can. I prefer not to use fusible interfacing, but if you're using fusible interfacing, the dots will be on the outside as I have shown here. With fusible interfacing, you have to make sure that when you iron, you're ironing to a non-sticky surface like Teflon or silicone. That way, when you iron your shape into place, it doesn't stick to everything around it, which is why I prefer non-fusible interfacing. Using your iron, you're going to create the final finish to your applique shape. By pressing the shape into place, you're going to tame the fabric and the seam and the interfacing into one lovely edge-turned applique using sew-in materials such as ultralight interfacing. This has been a tutorial for the pattern Paris Je t'aime, available at prideandjoyquilting.com. Thank you so much, and please consider following or subscribing.